It's only been a week. You're supposed to be resting in the goddamn hospital.
Yeah, I know, and y'all supposed to be out here watching to make sure I don't get the hell out of here, right? Jane put y'all up to this, didn't she?
We're worried about you.
Well, don't be worried about me. I'm fine. I just had to get from up there for a second, man. Look, up there is nothing but a bunch of old, sick people. Everybody's hacking and coughing and moaning and groaning. You would fit in perfect up here, Taggart.
Hey, leave me out of this, all right?
Hey, look, man, I just want to go get a steak. I'm starving.
No.
No, what do you mean no? I just eaten this hospital food
Axel,
for a
no
week
way.
and I need some real food.
No way.
What? I'm not trying to start no shit. I just want a steak. Let's go. Come on, man. Look, you know me. You understand me. You know I need this, man.
Don't do it, Billy.
Sarge, we both know I'm gonna do it.
Oh, let's get a porterhouse.
We're
Not
talking.
getting any younger, you know.
Come on,
But
let's go
not
get-
one word to Jane, and that's an order.
Not one word to
No,
Jane.
no.
This is gonna be fantastic. Trust me.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 248 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm Becca and as always joined by my fellow co-hosts Chris and Dave. How are you both?
Good evening, folks.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late. I got stuck with a banana and a tailpipe.
Yeah, again, questioning is just not a euphemism.
And yeah,
Didn't.
I didn't mention what tailpipe, did I?
No, you didn't. I just think they could have made some political commentary on the dangers of conversion therapy and had Damon Wayans in it offering him a pie this time. Because, yes, something we don't get today, and I don't just mean gay sex, I mean bananas and tailpipes. We don't get any of that in this film.
No,
So,
we are...
so anyway, yeah, we're covering the Lady
So which Hitchcock
Vanished.
film are we covering now?
Yes,
the
today
Lady
we're Alfred
Vanishes.
Hitchcock's Beverly Hills Cop.
She disappears off to get a banana in her tailpipe, and they all don't know where she is.
This is it, yes. So we're taking a break. Not taking a break, but we're just taking a bit of time out from our Hitchcock retrospective. As you may have noticed, new Beverly Hills Cop movie dropped on Netflix this week. So we thought, let's drop in and do it. So yeah, tonight we are reviewing the latest Beverly Hills Cop movie, Axel F, starring Eddie Murphy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Taylor Page, Judge Reinhold, Kevin Bacon, John Ashton, and Bronson Pinchot returning as Serge, with an amazing score by Lorne Balfe. Script written by Will Beall, Tom Cormack, and Kevin Etten, directed by Mark Molloy, making his feature debut, and it released on Netflix this week, certainly here in the UK.
Lorne Balfe has, well, I can't remember if he did the last one, but he definitely did Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yes.
And he did a few of the Assassin's Creed games as well, although the best known theme was written by Jesper Kidd, but I think he did like Assassin's Creed. I can't remember if it's Brotherhood or Revelations. He did a couple of entries anyway.
No, he's done a few of those games, hasn't he? Definitely.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
he's,
an amazing score as well.
I don't mean to insult him when I say this, but he's a pretty good mimic, if you like, in the same way that we used to say about J.J. Abrams. He can sort of look a bit like other directors if you need him to. I think Lorne Balfe has the same talent in that he came in after Jesper Kidd on the Assassin's Creed series, and it was pretty seamless. And I think it's pretty seamless here. This could easily be a Harold Faltermeyer score.
Well, I think it's really good because I think it does go back. There's a video I think I posted about it on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, just sort of detailing a little bit about how they did create the score, and I think they went back and used some of like the original synths from the mid '80s to try and recreate. Try and recreate that score. I mean, it's a shame in that video that Faltermeyer doesn't get mentioned, unfortunately, but it was just a clip of a larger video where they do go into more detail about it.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I suspect that's what it was, because I thought, well, they can't be that disrespectful and not mention him at all. So it's probably just a clip from a longer video there. But it's amazing. You can see sort of videos of how these great big machines and how they brought back some original synths from the 80s to kind of recreate that sound and recreate the theme as well. Brilliant score here by Lorne Balfe, definitely.
The director is Mark Molloy. It's his featured debut.
Yeah, that's amazing.
He did music videos and things like that. I was a little nervy when I saw who was writing it because Will Beall was sort of the lead screenwriter on it, and of course he did Gangster Squad, Aquaman, and Justice League, and I haven't liked a lot of what he's done. But again, what everyone seems to have done here is is a bit of a tribute act, for good and for ill, really. And obviously we'll go into a bit more detail. I watched it on Thursday. It dropped on Netflix. It dropped on the Wednesday. I didn't get to watch it Wednesday. I watched it on the Thursday. I was really hoping to watch it again today, but England struggled long and hard at the football, and I didn't get time. So yeah, I guess have you guys just sort of seen it the once?
I've rewatched it. I've watched it once, and I've rewatched it kind of half last night and caught up the rest of it later this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with some sort of opening thoughts, if you like. I think this plays like a remake, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that's all bad at all. But it's hitting all the beats of the first film. It's even using quite a lot of the music from the first film, and I don't just mean score. I mean some of the source music is the same. So was it Patti LaBelle? I forget now.
No, don't think. Didn't you?
No, what's the song called? No, what's the song called? Anyway, the couple of the early parts of the film, you're getting the same songs as in the first film, and the sort of beats of it. It's not exactly the same story, but you've got a very destructive opening, in the same as the first film. You've got him then going out with a personal angle to LA, as in the first film. You get him pissing off the police, as in the first film, and arrested. The film ends in a very similar sort of location. Axel gets injured in a very similar way. Obviously, Serge comes in for a scene as comic relief. It's better than it probably had any right to be. If I had to, maybe this isn't a flaw. Maybe this isn't a problem, because they tried to do something different with Beverly Hills Cop 3 and it didn't really work too well. It wasn't quite as bad as I was expecting, but it wasn't great. This reminded me, not the film, but just the character reminded me of what they did to Han Solo in The Force Awakens, where there'd been a degree of a character development through the first three films, and then they sort of had to reset him back to how we found him in the first film, just for the sake of giving us this greatest hit Star Wars film. And I think they've sort of done it here. They've given us a greatest hits Beverly Hills Cop film. And what I think about it, we can get into as we go through it in just a little while. But with the exception of I read that it was going to be 95 minutes or something, and it's not. It's about 115. And I do think that feels ever so slightly too long for what we have here. But I had a decent enough time with it. How much fault I'll find with the detail, I'm not really sure yet till we get into it. What about you two?
Becca, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. I really enjoyed it. I would kind of agree with you guys that it's kind of it's not a straight up remake, definitely, but it's certainly it's a lot of the same beats. It's a bit of a mashup between the first one and the second one. The less said about the third one, probably the better. But yeah, so you got all kind of similar sort of beats. Obviously we now, I think in the interim there was a TV pilot where he had a son, but he's now got a daughter. She's fantastic. For me, she was the highlight of the film.
It was going to be a banana, and now it's a pie.
Maybe a pie flavored banana. I really don't know. But yeah, that's it. It's a totally different reason. And we've on our sort of chat thread that we have, Davey made a comment as, is he driving the same car? He probably is. Again, there's kind of a lot of scenes that are quite samey. There's a scene where he checks into a ridiculously expensive hotel. He just complains about how Beverly Hills is very expensive. Again, you hear that sort of classic theme as well. And you've got basically the gang all back together. And you've got Serge as well, making his impact as only Serge can. Or this time he's not drinking his bizarre lemon flavoured coffees, which is probably for the best.
With a twist.
Yeah, I think so.
Little twist.
And you got the shootout in the kind of the Beverly Hills mansion as well, which you've seen before in the films. I think the end of the second one, is it? Where you have the epic shootout in the mansion. The first one, that was it. Yeah. Kevin Bacon was great. I saw the trailers for this and thought he's going to be playing the villain somehow. There's probably not enough of him. It's probably one of my only few criticisms. But he is supremely slimy. And yeah, spoiler alert, he kind of really gets what's coming to him. But yeah, plays fantastically slimy villain, definitely. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good entry into the franchise. Probably sort of one of the better sequels ish, I would say. Yeah, what really impressed me was the score. My only other criticism would be perhaps there's maybe too much music, but that's not really much of a bad thing, especially when it sounds so good. So I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Chris?
Okay. Yeah. I'm still not sure whether I liked it to a degree. I think, broadly speaking, I think it's fine. Bear in mind, I'm probably like the biggest fan of the series, particularly the first film. I think it's one of my favourite films. So I'm probably gonna be more harsher on it than most. I would have thought.
You probably got more invested in it being
Probably,
good.
yeah. I mean, I was like,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, it's either going to be either one or two things. Either going to be like overtly critical, or I'm just gonna be all nostalgia, sweep over me and just love it.
It very much tries to push the nostalgia buttons, doesn't it? I mean, even down to Rosewood being obsessed with like a particular 80s film character and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's obsessed with Rambo. It's like, what?
Well, yeah, I mean, they kind of make an effort to sweep the third film under the rug a little bit. I mean, I wasn't sure whether they
do.
They kind of politely ignore it, but
They sort of mention it. They do mention something. They do mention 94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at first.
But yeah, he flips through the files and he goes through basically all the years of the sequels, so it's just quite funny. So.
I love the fact they've got pictures of him from both like escapades, and it's just basically shots from the film.
Yeah, it's a bit kind of knowing, isn't it?
Who's taking those photos? Like, yeah.
Yeah, how did they get those photos of?
They took a nice shot during a shootout at the end of the first.
Yeah, who was that?
They had a police photographer there. Yeah.
How did they get that photo?
That CCTV footage was really good. That day.
Yeah, CCTV footage from 1986 or whenever it was, 1994.
But yeah, no, I mean, at first I thought it was a bit because Taggart's now police chief, and with the mention of him being retired, I thought that might have been a bit of a retcon. But then on second viewing, I noticed that he said, "Oh, I came out of retirement."
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, I guess that's
because my wife's awful and inexplicably a hell of a lot younger than him. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's because we assume it's the same wife.
I've
got a few issues.
I think it is because I was trying to think of the name what he says in Beverly Hills Cop 2. And I think it rings familiar. I think it is, but anyway.
I would have loved to have seen Ronnie Cox. I would have loved to have seen Ronnie Cox, not in a major role.
What I thought would have been a nice touch, instead, would to have maybe like Jenny come back at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
I mean they're not major misses because obviously you'd have to crowbar both of them in one respect, I suppose, particularly Ronnie Cox because he would be decades retired by this point. But they do lean heavily on the fact that it's been sort of a lifelong friendship for them all since the first film, and that he goes out there regularly.
I do think there's not enough Rosewood. I think I would rather had Foley and Rosewood as the main two trying to like solve the case.
I think I agree. Yeah, and that speaks to a little bit of an issue, and I haven't thought it through enough to know if I'm going to be able to word it properly. But when we start talking about Taggart, there's something about it that doesn't quite work for me in this film.
Yeah.
But again, that's like film criticism, where film criticism isn't wildly needed. It's just a little bit of a caper, this film, and it's a reintroduction, But I felt the lack of Rosewood, and when I read up on Judge Reinhold, he hasn't worked in years, and it's almost to come out of retirement to do this. But you can be all in or all out, surely. I mean, when they made The Irishman and Joe Pesci made his first film for decades, he didn't just appear in a couple of scenes because he's essentially retired, did he? But there you go. I agree with that. I agree that I think the whole Taggart thing might be a little bit crowbarred in. I think that could be the problem. But I thought, by and large, the new characters worked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they quite worked for me personally. I think, and I don't necessarily think it's the actor's fault, per se. The only thing I will sort of add to, I think what you were saying about like bringing back old series. What was the series you referred about? Was it Star Wars, wasn't it? And kind of like resetting.
I referred to the fact that basically any Han Solo character development was binned to bring back the Rogue. Basically, we got him as he was at the start of Episode 4, just older.
Now, what I was thinking of when I watched it was actually Top Gun Maverick, in the sense of the fact that like we've gone back to this character and he's in exactly the same place, and it's almost by choice. It's not like he's kind of just prefers to sort of stay where he is. It's like Tom Cruise's character is like he did, and he
is referred to as lieutenant at one point early in the film as well. So he has been somewhat promoted, but he's not been the sort of.
But yeah,
we get a bit of a speech from his daughter later in the film that doesn't quite ring true to me, but if you bought it as said, it gives you why he sort of stayed where he is towards the end of the film. It works, it's okay, but I mean, he's in the same clothes, he's in the same car, literally, at the first start of the film. Doesn't take that to Beverly Hills with him, but it is that same shitty sort of damaged blue car that he had in the first film.
Yeah. He's known in the city though as well. It's like everyone. He's kind of. I get.
He's made a life there. Yeah, absolutely. They all know him. He's worked amongst them for years, and he's always had a little bit of the poacher turned gamekeeper anyway. That he probably knew all these criminals. Do you know what I mean? When he was younger. So he can kind of straddle the two lives. I think the other thing I thought of, and again, I don't think I wouldn't set this bar for the film as such, but it's a bit like when Jason Bourne came out, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts and indeed when we reviewed that film, that when it comes back after that number of years under a quality director, and in that case, the same director, you think, oh, they must have a brilliant idea here then. And they didn't. But on the other hand, you had the Coming to America sequel, and it's leagues ahead of that. I mean, he's only made a handful of films in recent years. One of them was Candy Cane Lane, which I haven't seen. That's more of his sort of family film side. But he made Dolomite Is My Name. And I always said about Dolomite Is My Name, it was a real welcome return to form for Eddie Murphy. But the film ended up being overrated because we were just so happy to be seeing him doing his adult shtick again. So this is more along those lines. I'm not sure how good it is, but it's nice to see him back doing this sort of thing. I mean, admittedly, they go for a steak rather than to a titty bar, but it's got all the language and all the violence and everything else. So they haven't pulled their punches too badly with it. And like I say, Coming to America was terrible, the sequel to that.
Yeah.
So this
Agreed.
is okay.
That is awful. This isn't. I mean, yeah, Eddie Murphy looks like he actually wants to be there, and there is that kind of feeling like, oh yeah, he's back, kind of thing. I just don't know. I like the music. I like the musical touches. I did like the score. I did think maybe just a bit too much. It was a bit. Hey, do you remember that song from Beverly Hills Cop 2? And oh wait,
and we are talking the same songs as well.
Yeah,
certainly early in the film. There's a few different things, but I mean, the first song you hear is Bob Seger, and the second one, it wasn't Patti LaBelle. You're right. I can't remember the name of the group, but it's a woman singing.
We put on Heat Is On.
Yes, sorry, we got The Heat Is On first, but then the next song you hear is Bob Seger, which when you look the song up is like the time of the second film. So
it's around this, and we do hear Neutron Dance at some point as well.
Neutron Dance, that's it. Neutron Dance, that's what I was trying to think
Pointer
of.
Sisters?
Pointer Sisters, not Patti LaBelle. Yeah, Pointer Sisters, you're absolutely...
You wonder whether they probably decided on like when to do that. I mean, I think they would probably in two minds whether should we do that for the opening one, or is it Bob Seger?
Yeah, they sort of hit those same beats.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it would work. You know, if they flip the two, or
No, but as you both mentioned as well, there is a big nostalgia factor, obviously, because it is, it's sort of the anniversary, sort of 40 years, as it were, and also kind of like you are sort of hitting those nostalgia beats. So I mean, you got the gangs all here, you got the music, you got the iconic score, and you got all those kind of classic 80s tracks as well.
Yeah.
So it is kind of just. There's a lot to be said with nostalgia at the moment. It just kind of hit you over the head a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I always said about the first film.
I don't mind because it sounds great.
Yeah, and I'm with Chris to a degree, and I am a big fan of the first film. But when we reviewed it with a critical eye, the plot of that film was the least interesting thing about it. I mean,
Yeah, it's one of those things when you look at it too closely, it does.
Well, it's not that it
slightly.
really fell apart. It's more the fact that bearer bonds are not really a thing in this country anyway. But also, Mikey, who gets killed, we don't spend much time with him. He's a bit of a dick anyway.
Yeah, the impact
And
isn't
so
kind of as much as what it
plot is just a thing to hang this character on, and some
Yeah.
capers. And the same is true here. And on that
Yeah.
logic, it does just about enough to justify its own existence.
Yeah, it's a kind of. I mean, I did enjoy it. It was a fun watch. But yeah, a solid 3 out of 5.
Yeah. I'd go with that. Yeah. I think it's quite a comfortable one. I mean, I wasn't blown away. I didn't think, oh my god, this is like genius reinvention of the series in a way. And it kind of teased that at moments. I mean, of how it looks. It kind of feels like it's almost going to like a semi remake of it.
Yeah, it definitely is. But then we said that about the second one to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to re-listen to our reviews. I was never that in love with the first sequel. But I enjoyed it more when we redid it. It was just Tony Scotted up to the hills. Like, it was just jazzed up a bit. But the second one was a bit slow. And when I say this film is very slightly too long, it isn't too slow though. There's just a couple of bits in the film where it kind of just drops away a little bit.
But it's nearly 2 hours, isn't it? It does kind of, as I say, it's got a bit of a pace to it. I don't think there are any parts that it's sort of like massively drag. But it does, it does kind of like, I mean, there are obviously like slower parts, parts that perhaps maybe a bit too much dialogue, a little bit of Basil exposition as well pops up every so often. It generally whips along.
There was one bit in dialogue. Kevin Bacon actually says the sort of Bond type line of "We're not that different, you and I," sort of thing.
Yeah, when he said that line, I was sort of like, "Oh no, we're not that different." You and I.
But a bit
But he
later,
did it really well. So.
Just afterwards, Axel says to him, "You watch too many movies," and I'm thinking, is that next level? Is that the film writer critiquing his own line in that he's saying, yeah, he's just doing cliches from films, or is the film just not that smart? I don't really know.
I wonder if it's a bit, because obviously there's a trend after the recent Scream sequels as well. There's a bit of a trend, like Meta, for example. So like now we're recording this in July. We've got Maxine coming out, sort of the third in the sort of Pearl kind of threequel, I guess, for Ty West. That's the one. I've not seen it. Unfortunately, I've not seen any of them. Unfortunately,
I think that'd be quite interesting. I think X feels like a very sort of homage to 70s slasher horror like type thing. So,
yeah, Scorsese says the same. So they all kind of focus on different aspects of cinema.
When you're thinking, oh, hang on, this is kind of like a trilogy of sorts. When you look at Pearl, you kind of go, oh, okay, this is quite interesting, especially when you marry the two. So I'm quite interested.
But with this third one as well, it's one of those films about film and filmmaking sort of thing. So there's a bit of meta going on there. Same with the Scream sequels. I don't know, it's obviously different.
I mean, I'm not sure if we are doing that here, but you could at least use that as an example of they might be.
Yeah, I sort of wondered. I was just coming at it from that point of view. I kind of thought, oh, are they being quite self-reflexive? Obviously, there's a lot of nods to the previous films as well, so there's a bit of kind of an air of meta-ness. I mean, it's probably not, but I just kind of thought, well, maybe that's it. Really, that's kind of what's going on here. Or it could just be, just a throwaway line of dialogue, really, because there's no other kind of reference made to his character, like being obsessed with movies or kind of watching too many movies or whatever. But it's probably just a throwaway line of of Axel, because he has a bit of a motor mouth. He does have these sort of crazy lines that he comes out with. But yeah, I just kind of thought, I wonder if it ties into that, the sort of the self-reflexive trend that we've seen in movies recently. But probably not.
Yeah, okay.
Did you guys have a sense of the trend of deconstruction in this, or do you think it was a lot more?
I think what I'm getting at is partly that I don't know if the film is being a little bit knowing and deconstructionist, or whether there's just he wrote a not great line and then wrote a line completely unrelated to it that could be used as a riposte.
It could be anything and everything, really, couldn't it? But yeah, no, I would kind of agree. I mean, there's definitely a knowing element of all the references to the past films as well, and some of them you do have to sort of suspend your disbelief, like the photos when he goes past through the past cases.
And I also think Kevin Bacon is playing his villain even broader than Victor Maitland. And I do wonder if that's... I don't know if there's a bit of commentary in that or not. There's bits where I don't know if it's sort of badly written, but not egregiously so. Just like, it's okay, but you could pick flaws with it. Or whether it completely knows what it's doing. And that's a flaw of seeing it.
It's treading that fine line, really, isn't it? Definitely. But no, sure. I would agree, Chris, for sure. There is a bit of deconstructivism going on there.
I think in regards to Kevin Bacon, I think he's... I think he's really good. He's very lizard-like because he's very thin and
he's sort of very slick, isn't he? And he's
very
quite angular.
He's very sort of lizardly-like, kind of like reptilian, but very slimy. He's very like, oh hey, I'm your friend, but really in a really disingenuous way.
It's the fact. He's wearing ridiculously expensive stuff.
He's got really expensive shoes. He's got this massive glitzy watch.
Victor Maitland had legitimate business fronts and enough friends in high places that it was at least you've just pissed off an important local businessman. Whereas this guy is so obviously the villain that Taggart comes off a bit of a twat that he can't see it.
No, that's it. Yeah, he's just kind of slimy and corrupt through and through.
It doesn't help that it's a bit of a retcon of like, oh, what, this guy we've not even heard of in previous films is like, oh, well, I've trained him with Christ. He's like, the relationship there is a bit undercooked.
Yeah, he was in the academy with him, but I get the impression he was more senior, further on in the academy. Yeah, I made that complaint when we did Creed 3, if you remember. That I thought Creed 2 was a natural solution, or a natural denouement. Sorry, and then Creed 3 they wanted to dig further into the character, but they had to like invent a load of stuff to be able to do that. And then introduce it and deal with it in the one film, and it ended up feeling... I quite enjoyed Creed 3, but it ended up forced as a result. But my problems with Taggart go a bit deeper than that. Shall we discuss this film sequentially?
Yeah,
let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
What we can remember having seen it a few days ago.
I was going to say, I was really hoping to rewatch it today, but we want to get this recording in. I don't think it's going to be the longest show anyway, because it's a remake, effectively. But he's a police officer now, and you are getting... Yeah, he's still in Detroit, and you've got him driving around.
His car.
He's just driving around, and
it's quite
everybody knows him.
The thing that sort of struck me was, like, has it changed? It's one of those things where, obviously, it's kind of, at the time when this film came out, it was... Well, I was going to say, this is it, considering everything that's gone through. There's probably very little... I don't wish to insult, but there's probably very little that has changed, and as you say, it probably has declined, unfortunately. But I thought that was quite cool, a sort of nice callback to that first opening scene. But I kind of thought, well, if you compare the two sequences, gone a bit downhill.
Well, I don't know, because it was quite... I always found it sort of amusing in the opening film that you go to watch a film called Beverly Hills Cop, and some exciting music kicks in, and then you see this, like, not very nice looking city at the time.
No.
But I also said
that's not remotely Los Angeles or Beverly Hills. It's like...
No, if they called it the Detroit Hills Cop.
But I always said it was no coincidence that they set RoboCop in like a futuristic Detroit, because it's always been a cinematic byword for urban decay.
Yeah.
What state Detroit is in. I know it went. I've always heard the shorthand that Detroit went bankrupt. In reality, I'm not quite sure what that means. I presume bankruptcy can be a thing, but it's a bit like sovereign governments can't go bankrupt, for example. There's no such thing. So I don't really know what happened, but I know it's had its problems. But
I'm
whether
pretty sure Michael Moore made a film about it.
it wasn't Detroit though. It was
No, it wasn't.
It's Michigan, but it was Flint.
Yeah.
Um,
But a kind of like the decline of the motor industry.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I don't know how.
We didn't know how it happened.
I don't know how full my picture of Detroit is, and I don't know how up to date that picture is in and of itself. Is Detroit recovering these days in any way? What is it like there now? We're not seeing an absolute hellhole in these shots, are we? It's just
No,
lacks.
it's just generally
lacks
a city in decline.
Yeah, it just lacks a bit of glamour. That's all, and it's not particularly warm either. But yeah, he's driving around and all the rest of it, and then we go to a basketball game, don't we?
Yeah. So yeah, he goes straight to it's ice hockey. So he's there with another Detroit
Is it ice
cop.
hockey? Is it?
Ice
Yeah.
hockey,
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And he's there with another Detroit cop. He's set up the tickets because basically he's trying to nail down these robbers. Who he believes are going to do robbery.
He's been warned off. He's been warned off it. We find.
Yes. So that's why. So basically, he's saying, "Look, you get the tickets. We'll bust these guys, and you get credit." And I'll just be like, "Oh, we just happen to be here," kind of.
Yeah.
Do you want to hang out with me? No.
Yeah.
I always think there's a lot of thinking of Eddie Murphy characters. There's a lot of cross pollination with Billy from Trading Places. In the he turns out to be a massively good trader because he can just see how the world works. There's a fierce raw intelligence there, and it is very raw in both cases. Axel knows what he's looking for, and he just knows that there's a robbery about to happen, and he's really quite relaxed about it. And this sort of just leads to a bit of an action sequence. Do you want to tell us a bit more about it, Chris? Because again, I've seen it once.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, yeah.
You're the action go-to.
Well, no, but he it's one of the things where he knows who it is, so he's just basically on the lookout for where they are. So he's there looking around his blockers. He spies them or he sees one of them. He goes like, right, come on, let's go, but let's go arrest him. So they arrest him and they say, where's your other guys? And they find out they're basically robbing the locker rooms or something along those lines. And then and then there's a shootout which involves a chase with a snowplow. Is it a snowplow?
It is a snowplow, and again, if you think of the first action sequence of the first film, admittedly he wasn't driving it; he was stuck in the back, but it was smashing the shit out of everything, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit similar, isn't it? It's a similar callback.
Very, very similar. And this guy, his sort of partner here, is just the right side of parody for me. Because he's a bit excitable. He's a bit excited to be at a ball game with Axel, who's a bit of a cop hero here. And he is talking a lot during the chase, but it just about stays the right side of enjoyable for me.
Yeah, at first I thought, hang on, he looks like he's a cop but on work experience. It's like, yeah, but I'm not really a cop. I'm just I'm just here for the day, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that he gets on the phone to Paul Reiser at some point. It was in the first film, you may remember. Paul Reiser as Jeffrey. And he says, Paul Reiser's now like deputy chief. So he's Axel's boss, but not the boss. There is a level or so above him. And he says to him, oh yeah, he just happened to find it. He said he hasn't made no rest in 3 years, or he hasn't done any. And he said, well, look, see, he's getting better. That was kind of funny. In reality, it's where you have to suspend disbelief, because I don't think any cop would survive causing this much fucking damage on every single.
No, even if they sent him back to Beverly Hills, they'd be like, hell no.
And actually, there are consequences here because eventually Axel is in with the chief and Jeffrey, and he's resigned. He's announced his retirement, as they always say. Putting their papers in, they always refer to it. They used to do that in NYPD Blitz. And Axel realizes that he's done it to cover for him.
Yeah,
he's taken the blame for it.
Now this is just a character thing, but I've noticed, with him being the boss, when having their conversation, and before they get to that, Axel sits in his seat.
Yeah,
and it is a bit of like a. I don't think that sort of. I think it's just sort of to me, it just sort of says how relaxed they are. How like, oh, this is we're all friends,
They've had their entire careers together, and he was a bit of a clown in the first film, wasn't he, Jeffrey Friedman? He wasn't exactly. You weren't sure how competent he was. Now he's clearly played the game. It's very rare to get to that level if you don't have some talent. But I think he just completely indulges Axel because Axel's good. And he likes him. And there's always felt to be a little bit of him wishes he could be a bit more like Axel, but he wouldn't risk it. You know what I mean? Because only Axel can get away behaving that way.
Yeah.
And he says that he wants to spend time with his grandchildren. He's like, "You hate your grandchildren." And he throws it back on him and says, "When did you last see Jane?" And this is the daughter that was born. We never find out who the mother was because in the 1994 film, he seems to end that film in a very serious relationship he didn't really know about.
Yeah, that was a bit.
But on this timeline, I think the actress is about 32, and I don't know if that is actually dropped. But I don't know if she's a product of that relationship or what. And exactly.
Yeah, we didn't really find out about Mrs. Foley, do we? Really?
Yeah, and I also don't know how young you can be to make it to this quality of attorney when you think of all the training and experience required.
Yeah,
but
then she was pretty good.
On the film timeline, she'd have to be late 20s. On the actress herself timeline, she's early 30s. I'm just assuming she was a product of that relationship, but I was amazed the film didn't deal with it. I thought
because in the film they make a point of like she doesn't know, he doesn't know. Well, she claims that he doesn't know how old she is, but he does. So
I think it's more the fact that she always felt abandoned, so why would he know? But he knows everything, and we find out he had a very good reason for doing that. I think the fact is he didn't only lose his daughter for a number of years, but he lost a marriage to it as well. And I'm surprised that wasn't covered. Mom wasn't mentioned. I'm a little bit surprised you didn't mention that. Or, you didn't just damage my life, you damaged Mom's life too. I'm surprised we didn't get that.
My only thought in its possible defence is probably time. Like,
there's too much. There's a lot going on in this film. I mean, you got reunion, you got all the kind of all the gags here. There's a lot going on.
How would you that's another thing you have to sort of like explaining.
I would have done it exactly where they were talking about you don't even know how old I am when they're talking in the car and he's just starting to get through a little bit.
But then something something just like a couple of lines, would have. It would
have just been a couple of lines. That's all. It's just we almost forget she had a mother. But that's okay. So he suggests going out there, and actually,
he does mention that his mum was actually quite fierce and quite. He said like, she could be quite as dangerous as the cartel or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we find out later in the film, just going a little bit out of sequence, that the whole marriage broke up and she was estranged in that basically he put them in Beverly Hills because he was too well known in that town, and he was trying to bring down this cartel anyway, which is basically always short form for some kind of organized crime, and he just didn't want them at risk, so he gave them up. And later in the film, the speech we will come back to that she gives to Kevin Bacon explains that, but it's a little bit too neat, really. But it works within this film, less so the series. But Rosewood, when we meet the daughter, she is defending somebody who is been brought in as a cop killer, and he swears up and down he doesn't do it. He didn't do it, and Billy Rosewood, who's now a PI, informs her he's looking for the proof that he did not indeed do it. So they're
Yeah.
onto something. They're onto something about.
Yeah, if kind of Billy knows, then
Yeah,
so.
so
Yeah.
we were introduced to her first, and she sort of meets the kid who's in
He
prison.
didn't do it.
Yeah. So we get that story there, and then she gets kind of scared off, or tempted to be scared off, and then
A car gets pushed out of a
yeah.
parking lot and then just
Yeah,
held
that's quite a
by
scary
by-
scene. I think it's
I
quite
think
tense.
it's quite well done. Yeah.
Yeah, really well done, definitely.
And,
And she's,
yeah.
I say for me, the high point is Serge, obviously, and Taylor Page. She's fantastic.
I'm not entirely
I'm-
sold on her, to be honest with you.
I'd like to hear why, but I don't care whether you do it now or a bit later. Do you want to?
No,
talk-
I just think they kind of, because she's a bit. So there's, as I say, it's quite a busy film. There's a lot going on. They tried to cram in all the references, all the 80s callbacks, getting the gang all back together, and as much as I love Serge, everything's pretty much kind of shoehorned in. I would say her character's a little bit undercooked, but I feel she does in her performance really well with the material that she's got. I feel she kind of does really make that impact. And I personally find out that the way that I see it, at first I kind of thought, oh, they don't have that good a chemistry, but actually as the film went on, I sort of reevaluated my initial reaction. I thought, well, actually no, they do get on. They do, seem quite believable that they could be father and daughter. And I kind of felt that relationship between them really, but I just kind of felt like even though her character was a little bit underwritten, unfortunately, she kind of really gave it all that she had.
I'm not sure. I think it was underwritten as much as they're trying to do too much in one film.
I think it's probably a bit of both.
We've never heard of this woman. He hadn't even met. Well, we don't know if he even met her mother or had her at that point because the actress was born in 1990. I just looked it up. She's just shy of 34 at the time of recording and release.
Yeah.
And they've got to introduce her, show us what she does mean to Axel, show us why she's upset with Axel, establish what she does, establish why she does it, and establish her level of competence quite quickly.
Yeah, I think despite that, I think she does it really well. Just literally going on the strength of her performance. I mean, she's completely unknown to me, really. Just going on her sort of acting skills, really, and the strength of her performance for me. But yeah, to be fair, it is one of those films. There's a lot going on, and they've got a lot of ground to cover. 40 years in just 2 hours. So
she's a straight arrow to start with, but
well, she
fiercely
really is.
intelligent, and that scene sells who she is very well.
And also that she's
Unfortunately-
essentially working against him as well, because she's representing these cop killers, so that automatically sets them on the opposite side.
But as the film goes on, they start trying to morph her into Axel Jr.
They
goes
kind
on.
of give hints, don't they, that kind of like perhaps he kind of taught her things that perhaps maybe not normal for any sort of kid to learn, like how to get out of handcuffs and how to escape a burning vehicle and things like that, or how to look for bugs in your car and stuff like that. But a lot of that is kind of, as I say, Basil Exposition does rear his head quite a few times in the script. But despite that, that's just my personal opinion. It's not right or wrong, but that's just how I feel.
yeah,
Chris, tell us about this character then. I think I've just kind of revealed I've got some issues with it, but I think the actress's performance does a lot to make it work as far
She
as
does
she
a lot of
can.
the heavy lifting, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, for me, it's really more about I think she's good when she's like basically being Axel Jr., where she steps in to be like, oh, I've got the gift of the gab kind of thing. Oh, I can kind of.
Yeah, she's definitely got the mouth, hasn't she? She's got that kind of like the quick thinking.
But most of everything else, for me, a line delivery just feels flat, and I just I didn't quite sort of. It just didn't quite sort of.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Get with me. So I don't know. I kind of think, I thought on second watch that maybe the plot with the daughter would have worked better in a kind of sense, because everything's all a bit fractured. I mentioned how I would have preferred it if it was like Axel and Rosewood going around.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it would have made sense with the fraction of the relationship had it been like, let's just say she worked with Kevin Bacon's character, and it's her that she has to. It's her that Axel has to convince that no, this guy's dirty. Kind of similar to what, like, you know, with Jenny and
Victor Maitland.
Yeah, Victor Maitland.
Yeah.
Not that Jenny necessarily needed that convincing, but you know what I mean. It's that kind of, but that might have been a bit, maybe another similarity to the original. That might have been a bit too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, but that was just the thought that came ahead that would have.
It's very difficult when you're introducing offspring, siblings, anything like that are not mentioned before. And like I say, in Creed 3, he's had this lifelong friendship with this guy, and he feels so guilty. And it's like, you haven't mentioned him.
We've never heard of you.
Yeah, and you've got to try and make us feel something quite quickly. What I tended to do to deal with it is because there is a film where this wasn't an issue. He came out to try and like find Bogomil's assailant in the second film, so I don't see any reason you didn't necessarily need a daughter in this, but having done it, they've done about as well as you're going to do in a 2-hour film when we've never heard of her. And it's okay, and I think her performance is actually pretty good, but again, I've seen it once. Maybe next time I'll watch it and Chris infects it for me and I'm like, yeah, fuck me, that's flat, isn't it? I didn't
but Becca had a different thought of things. She wasn't with it, but then as the film got on, she did. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I can kind of see. I can see where you're coming from, Chris. Definitely. I mean, I would kind of, you know.
I will say this: there's a moment where, you know, she can do a single tear roll down the cheek performance. She can do that. So
yeah. Although no one in life ever cries like that.
No.
If you ever sat with anyone and you accidentally make them cry, they don't just.
Unless you're
they
Johnny
don't roll
Depp
a
in
single
Crybaby,
tear.
where you just cry that single tear.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, who does that in real life? Seriously.
So, Axel now heads to Beverly Hills again, and I think this is one of the most easy sort of foreshadowings you see, that Rosewood says, you know, I'm just about to find the evidence, and I'm thinking, well, he's about to be kidnapped then, isn't he? We won't see him for a
You can
while.
kind of predict the plots, can't you? Predict the beats, can't you?
Well, then he rings and like Rosewood's not responding, so he heads to Rosewood's office. We haven't met the chief yet, but we'll come to that. And there's a team in there, and again, this is very like the first two films, where he just pretends to be somebody else off the top of his head.
Yeah, he just makes up a name. It's like, oh, I'm so and so.
They're rifling through his stuff looking for something. We don't know what that is at the moment, but it turns out that it's going to be the SD card from the CCTV inside the car. In fact, it will just prove this kid's innocent.
Bit of a MacGuffin, isn't it? Yeah. So it's kind of.
It doesn't matter, but it will exonerate this kid. It will also put, we later find out, Kevin Bacon's character in the crosshairs, and therefore get Axel's kid out of trouble.
Something the police are after, but the audience don't care.
So he then gets chased, doesn't he? When they work out, he's doing it really well, pretending he's been sent there by the boss, but then the boss walks through the door, and it ends up in a chase where he's in like a buggy.
So it's also got a photo of him with like, as well as like, that's not me, that's Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
They're all fishing or something. I don't know what it was. It fishing?
Yeah.
What is
it was
it
fishing,
about films? They assume all men go fishing.
It's off Beverly Hills Cop 2. The same one, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a callback to that, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, they did mention it there. But yeah, it's just this thing, like, women have this idea. I'm sure, I've heard in the past from women on like dating sites that you come past so many pictures of men holding a fish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know any men who go fishing. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I was amazed by that as well.
I went once last year as like a birthday present bought for me, where you go out on a boat, because I live by the sea. But that's the only time in my life.
I wonder if it's like a geographical thing. I mean, just because like where I live, we've got quite a famous river, and yeah, obviously, like I certainly haven't worked. I've worked a lot of my sort of male friends have gone fishing. And it was a popular sort of pastime when you're younger as well. I used to go a lot with my grandparents. But yeah, I wonder if it's like a geographical thing. I don't know, or maybe it's just because also in this film there are a lot of old jokes. Not to be rude or ageist or anything like that, but there are a lot of jokes about aging.
I suppose it's like middle and upper class Americans, or middle class as we would define it, not as Americans would define it.
No, that's
all
maybe
all play golf in these films as well.
Yeah, so. Playing golf, fishing, sort of, trying to hobbies that are kind of a bit more sedate, slowing down, things like that. There are quite a lot of, obviously, because all the majority of the main cast are kind of in the sort of 60s, some heading into early 70s perhaps. So there are quite a lot of old jokes in this film.
So
maybe
basically,
it's part of that, really.
Axel is basically driven through Grand Theft Auto 5 streets.
Yeah, it is.
So many
GTA
streets
5.
have been copied in GTA 5.
A little bit like that.
Yeah, and he's on a buggy, and this is played mainly for laughs, isn't it? And it ends with him getting arrested. What do we think of this chase?
Quite a funny chase. It's it's a bit kind of like a old person. Oh dear, yeah, it's a bit kind of it's sort of played really for laughs. And yeah, it's just sorry,
But
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It was just pushing a bit too close to parody, but just a little bit.
I don't think
Yeah.
is it the meter maid, or who is it who's
She sprays mace in his eyes because he steals it, doesn't he?
She's a bit too tropey. That kind
Yeah.
of
She is a bit kind of generic meter maid lady, isn't she?
Yeah. So yeah, he's been maced in the eyes repeatedly as he's trying to
Maced in
do
the
this.
face.
And I must admit, I can't say I laughed, but I smiled a couple of times. So I must have thought it was okay, but it's pushing a bit too broad.
Grating slightly.
But he's arrested at this point, and he's met by a detective, Bobby, who's played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And it turns out this is a very...
He's arrested also similar to the first one, where he's like the two cops pick him up and take him in the car, but it's a different...
it's exactly the same, except the chief in this case is actually Taggart himself.
Yeah.
He is... I just... This is a very small world. For LA being such a big city, like, he's being interviewed by his daughter's ex-boyfriend here. And he demands to see the chief. He eventually gets in... Yeah, he eventually gets in to see Taggart. And I don't know what it is here. When he's eventually reunited with Rosewood later in the film, they pick up like old times, having these like bizarre conversations like they always did. I'd have happily watched a TV show of those two, no problem at all. But I don't know if it's his age. I mean, he looked a lot older than he was in the first film. But he kind of, maybe it's the meta knowledge that the character retired and now he's back. And it just doesn't feel right. And I don't think it's helped by the fact that he's very untrusting of Axel, even though he's known Axel for decades. And it's like, you can't play that trope from the first film again. You've known him too long. But secondly, he seems to have almost disavowed Billy because of his sort of wild conspiracy theories. And that seems a stretch. Stretches. This was at least a very smart, professional police officer. If you remember, they do everything by the book in the first one. He even offers Axel the chance to like charge him for it. Yeah, and here he doesn't see that Kevin Bacon is evil, and Kevin Bacon is playing it, mustache twirling, but he's also, it's too broad. Like I say, Victor Maitland was cold. And I like the way he played that role compared to how he was in, say, Octopussy. I like that cold, detached way of doing it. But he had legitimate business fronts. He had other people do his dirty work for him. Here you've got a policeman wearing excessively expensive watches and shoes and stuff like that.
Just
and
hanging around with goons as well, like not even like other... like
Not even hiding it.
Not hiding it. I think it's just kind of out and out shorthand.
I was
like
half
how corrupt
expecting
he is.
his goons to be like membered of his squad, like other cops. You know what I mean? I thought it was kind of be like that.
I just think I will flat out say it. That little plot point is dumb, and it doesn't help bring Taggart into the story properly. And therefore, what you're left with, particularly as you've already had a phone call between Axel and Rosewood, is thinking, yeah, I wish this was Billy. I think I'd agree with you there, Chris. So as a plot point, this is a bit daft.
I will say this about, so I think with Kevin Bacon, I think what reason maybe why he's been or maniacally like turning up the smarm and the what's it, the sliminess,
He's doing what he was hired to do. He's a smart guy, Kevin Bacon. He's not trying to play this under the radar and fucking it up. He's meant to be playing it like this.
Yeah, but I think it's because the character isn't really there though. If you think about the villain, you think about Kevin Bacon being smarmy and being like instantly dislikable.
That's it.
But the character itself is like he's a crooked cop. We don't. He gives like
we don't know anything about why. When you say Taggart says, "Well, I mentored him. He was a brilliant police officer. I trust him." You're totally wrong. It's like, well, okay. At some point, he must have gone bad then. So, but we get no indication of what the trigger was for it.
Yeah,
we just don't know.
We get like, oh well, I got a shot on the leg, and I just got like a ribbon. So. There's things like that, but then the problem is though he says all kinds of stuff which he kind of because the way you don't really trust anything he says anyway. Like towards the end he says like, "Oh, I lost my family, my wife left me," blah blah. But you have no idea if that's even true. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't really trust anything he says.
So you're left with like, okay, but what is this guy? And so all you got is basically just sort of, "Mwahahaha. I'm really slimy and evil."
Panto
and I'm excessively smug that I'm going to get away with everything, kind of thing.
The film doesn't wear too many scars of this, so this isn't meant as quite the insult it will sound. But of course, they've been developing different scripts for this film for like a quarter of a century or more. And in fact, it's been announced a couple of times in those years. I'm sure in the mid-2000s I heard an announcement. Brett Ratner was on it for a while, and they were supposed to be out before the 2000s were finished. Sorry. Then I heard him talking about it. Then I heard him talking about the TV show, and then it went back to the
TV show at that point, didn't it?
But then it went back to being a film again, and I want to make a great entry. And I think there's a possibility that we've gone through so many different scripts that remnants of previous versions are in here.
And there's been so many different iterations. There's going to be sort of bits left behind, aren't there?
There's probably versions where this character was better drawn, but it didn't quite fit in this version of the film. And
plus you've got a few different writers, as say, coming from various different genres. So it's going to be. I mean, it's not too many sort of cooks, but there's going to be quite a lot of things going on and sort of things left by the wayside, etc.
Yeah, one of the other writers is Kevin Etten, and he's written for TV, but he also used to be a staff writer for David Letterman. So obviously he spent a lot of his career writing funny lines, if you like, and he did co-write the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I really enjoyed last year. So there is some talent in the cast here, or sorry, behind the cameras here. Okay, so he's bailed out by his daughter. We get it revealed the backstory that they were, threatened by Detroit mob, and Axel got them to LA, but they divorced and he stayed there. At this point, there's still people after them. They fear Jane uncovering what's happened.
So they go to the car compound to check out the car.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So this is typical sort of thing. He walks in and Axel blags his way. Well, he doesn't really. Well, he does, but Jane undermines him a bit. So he's like, "Oh, tell us about Jupiter Ascending." Oh.
Yeah. The guy behind the counter was an extra or a small part in Jupiter Ascending. Whether that's true or just an in-joke, I don't know, because I haven't seen that film.
No. To be fair, I have, and to be honest, if someone asked me to explain it, I'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, it's famously a bit kind of labyrinthine, isn't it? It's a bit like.
Well, it's
no, I just can't remember anything about it. I know.
But yeah, she goes, why don't you tell us about the story, and all that. This is one of the better scenes in the film. But like a lot of things, I will say it goes on slightly too long.
Yeah.
If you think about one of the equivalent scenes in the first film where he needs to get closer to whatever crime's gone on, the herpes simplex 10 scene, from the first film. Well, that is much briefer than this. So it goes on a bit too long. It's quite cool to hear him riffing.
Yeah, I will say this in regards to the deconstruction bit. Axel kind of doesn't have the same gift of the gab here, because in both instances I think this is the only one where he's kind of successful. But even then he's a bit like kind of caught off guard by Jane. He's like, oh God, I can't really say. Other times it's like he's floundering. Jane comes and saves him, and the other time, which I really like, is when he goes back to the hotel. He goes to Black and he goes, "Sorry, I'm too tired. Just can't have room."
Yeah.
But that,
I'd not really considered that because I've seen it once, but it's the sort of thing I'll look out for on a rewatch. Yeah, because you're absolutely right. There is a little bit of time's gone on. I'm maybe not as match fit as I used to be. I don't work as much. The actor doesn't work as much, so his comedy chops are probably atrophied a little bit. I get that. There's a sort of action sequence here, isn't there, where the other Joseph Gordon-Levitt comes in and saves them.
That's a bit later on, I think. Is it? Yeah. So they check out the car. They find out there's an SD drive in there, which would have evidence that would exonerate them, or exonerate the guy. So they
recover. They see that the camera's missing and it would be a card in there. Yeah.
And then from there they figured out, oh, hang on, we're being followed.
And it must be at Rosewood's.
Mm.
Rosewood must have it. That must be why they were tearing his place apart. And then he has a little look under the car with a sort of mirror and sees that there's a tracking device on there. And they drive off. He leans in, sticks it on a school bus, and then just hides somewhere to see who's following that bus. And it's the same guys that they've seen in Rosewood's apartment / office. So they know what this is about now. This is something to do with money laundering.
So
so
obviously they see who's following them, so they end up following them, and they go to this sort of private function. This is where Axel tries to blag his way, or starts to blag his way, and then Jane comes in and backs him up, and then
there's one detail we forgot, and it's very throwaway. You could miss it when he was in Billy's apartment / office earlier in the film. He does rip something out of a desk diary, and it's an address.
Oh yes, of course.
And that's relevant because that turns out to be owned by Kevin Bacon Grant.
Mm. Yeah. And then so they go in and then they see the guys that follow them with surprise Kevin Bacon. So if you didn't know that he was a bad guy, well, now you
do know.
Now you do.
I just think it's not really subtle though, is he? I mean, like, you're supposed to.
No.
Yeah.
He can kind of play like lots of different roles. I mean, like he sort of made his name as sort of teen slashers of the 80s and that sort of thing. And he sort of played a whole mixture of things as well. But I think it seems like in this kind of latest run where he's popped on his screens, he's kind of playing like either out and out villainous characters or characters that are turn into Sean Connery there for a little bit, that are certainly have a sort of shadier edge to them.
A shadier edge.
Sure.
See. Did you mean to say a sadier edge then? If you're doing Sean Connery at the moment?
I said certainly instead of certain. So yeah. Also, apologies for my speech impediment in the last episode. There, I did get a bit tongue-tied.
I don't remember what that was though.
So I was kind of thinking, here is kind of he's certainly more. I mean, he's one of those really versatile actors. He can kind of pretty much do anything. That's kind of why he's survived so long, as well as when he's not selling phones. But yeah, he is, as you both said, he's not a subtle villain. He is kind of like you're very much a slimy sort of.
It's not that big a deal, though, is it?
No, but he's really good. Like he revels in the role, definitely. He's quite enjoyable to watch in that particular role. He turns up, he's going to do a good job, basically. So.
I think that what the film is missing though is that bit, and I think it would have been here. So usually in Beverly Hills Cop movie, there's a scene where Eddie Murphy publicly embarrasses the bad guy.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And I think if I was thinking, I don't think it's in this film. And I think if we were going to do it, it would have been here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll just comment that, like, probably pinpoint. It's probably the moment, I think, but might have been a bit too early in the film. I don't know, but
Maybe.
But
I
anyway.
don't know. Where did we go from there, Chris? That is a genuine question because I'm
So,
losing the order of
yeah.
things because I've only seen it once.
They go back home. There's a bit more stuff. Axel and Jane. She drops him off. Kind of doesn't want anything more to do with him.
Yeah.
And then Axel gets a room at the hotel. It says, just have a room.
So we haven't got to Joseph Gordon-Levitt being sort of suspended or anything yet. Then
Not yet, no.
okay, all right. So he goes to the hotel. And just $950 a night.
Yes.
It's that expensive.
How much was it in the original? How much has inflation gone up for?
Yeah, I wondered that as well.
I keep talking and I'll see if I can find it.
Let's have a look. Man looks up
See if I
something
can
on.
find- You
Vita.
guys carry on for a moment. I'll go looking for it.
There's some music. Do, 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 do.
So, but basically we get that, and then Axel meets up with Jane again, pretending to be someone like some kind of important lawyer or something like that.
Oh yeah, he's dressed really odd. He finds
Yeah.
him in the office. He says, "I know you want nothing to do with me, but I could pretend to be a lawyer."
Yeah,
And he does. He wears that
okay.
terrible suit.
and this is after he's like,
The Beverly Palm Hotel was $235 a night.
Oh,
So
so it's gone up a little bit.
$715 a night more.
so yeah,
So it's gone up
so it's
considerably
gone
in
nearly
40 years.
4 times as much, nearly
Over, yeah,
four.
yeah, pretty much. No, just a
Oh.
little bit more than that. Yeah,
Yeah.
about 4
With
times.
inflation.
All right.
What we good? Yes. So, so this is before Axel cases like the address that Billy had. See some like cars and trucks going out. So he meets up with Jane again. Piques her interest with the address, and I think this where you were saying about Joseph Gordon-Levitt and about him getting suspended.
Yeah.
Or doesn't quite get suspended, but he has altercations with Taggart about, like, look, how come I wasn't told about SD drive on this case? And that kind
He
of
does
thing.
suspend him without pay, doesn't he?
Yeah, but
He
I
does
think,
say this.
I think it's after the attack. So basically, after that, he
Oh,
follows.
okay. So at the moment, he's like, "You just haven't told me about this." I get
Yeah. So afterwards, so so Joseph Gordon-Levitt follows Axel and Jane, but this is where they get like attacked by cartel
by the
members.
goons.
Yes.
Because the cop that killed was Copeland, and he worked with all these people. So yeah, they do care, to say the least. Yeah.
So which is quite a good action scene.
It
for
is.
the most part.
Yeah.
Would like to see more actual
It kind
scripts
of
rather
reminded
than
me a little. It reminded me a little bit of the Winter Soldier, the action sequence in that. Funnily enough, this film was edited by a Marvel editor. Yeah.
there's a bit of a brutality to like the car crashing and things like that. So
Yeah, exactly that. But yeah, they are obviously being attacked. They want to kill them. Simple as that. Then what? Is this about the mansion next, or have we done that?
yeah, I think so. But yeah, so once they get suspended, they both go to the mansion, so they get Surge.
Yeah, there's also some reasonable dialogue around, being suspended, because Axel's been suspended more times than he can count.
I do my best work when I'm suspended.
I do my best work when I'm suspended, because there's like, because he's like, we can't do anything, I'm suspended. She's like, I do my best work when I'm suspended. So they get Surge to gain access through like a showing. and they've crammed Surge into like the films since, haven't they? And I think this is placed quite well. It's right on the verge of there being too much of him, and then he disappears.
On the verge of too much Surge?
On the verge of too much Surge, definitely.
So I think Surge is a bit muted in this film.
Well, just with the pronunciations of the names and that. I mean, he's got to be in a whole sequence, and if he was too flaming, it would probably be too much.
He's a bit. I kind of think he is perhaps maybe just enough. Not that you can have too much Surge.
You can totally have too much Surge. If Surge was in every, it's a bit like Joe Pesci in the later fucking Lethal Weapon films. They get too much. Yeah.
Oh, so much fun. But I think in these days, age of obviously technology's moved on since 1994. You can do so much. Like if you look at Beverly Hills Cop Axel F on streaming or YouTube, there's lots of kind of videos about him, that sort of thing as well. So I think he has more exposure thanks to socials these days.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I thought it was fine for what he was.
Yeah, definitely, and it was kind of is a great way in. It doesn't kind of feel like shoehorned as a lot of things do in this film, but yeah, he's kind of just the right amount of time. It is the right time, place, and it's like he's never been away. So he slips back easily into that role, and you know where you are in an instant. So which is really important. So he still looks fabulous.
Ackwell and all that.
Still can't pronounce. Yeah, still it hits all those beats. Still can't pronounce his name.
So yeah,
everyone's going, no, I cannot, and it's like, oh, here we are again.
It is another greatest hits sort of element, but they play it okay and they give him something to do.
I thought it's better in 3 actually. Beverly Hills Cop 3.
What did he do in 3? Remind me.
Just the stuff, like the lines he was saying about like how like I'm trying to slim down, but I don't care. Like, yeah, but I don't care. I wear suits.
But it was
that kind of stuff.
For what it was. And they go to. We got Luis Guzman in this film.
Yeah, I totally forgot that he was a cameo in this movie. Oh my gosh, we didn't see enough of him. So.
Yeah, this is the uncle, isn't it, of the accused guy?
Yeah.
Now he seems very well informed.
He does.
They say that Grant protects the cartel, and there's a drug shipment leaving the port that night. But then they are arrested by Grant, and he's planted a load of drugs in the car, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But they manage to escape, and then we get a helicopter action sequence because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character used to be like a helicopter guy in the military.
Yeah.
And he turns out he's had some kind of PTSD and he can barely fly it. And it's not a bad sequence.
Yeah, there's the comedy is the expectation, isn't it, of like, oh well, he can fly it, and then it turns out actually,
I wouldn't have asked you to do this if I'd known. Yeah, it's fairly funny, and actually Eddie Murphy's always good at sort of panic. So that was cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's
sequence.
quite a good sequence.
The odd thing is though that whole sequence is enough to convince Taggart that Kevin Bacon is dirty.
Yeah, because he fires at the bloody helicopter outside the police department, and the very people in there have already told Taggart he's bent.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look great.
I don't know. I mean, at the moment they are arrested for drug possession, and they've escaped.
Would you blow them out of the sky? Bear in mind, Taggart has known Axel for 40 years. There's no way. Mind you, he thought there was no way Grant was guilty. It's a little weak, but it's a decent action sequence, and as something that convinces Taggart, you go, I'll give it a pass. Yeah, that's all right. I
just thought, in layman's terms, if you haven't been convinced this far, what about this makes you so sure? Do you know what I mean? Like, where's the smoking gun?
All right.
Literally.
Okay. So now they go to the port where the cartel's operating. This is a tip-off from Chilino, who is Luis Guzman's character, and they find Rosewood. And far too late in the film for me.
I kind of feel like we don't. I'm just going to say it now. So obviously, all the way through the series, we've seen Billy kind of rising up, getting into a higher position, where he's even he's obviously out of his depth, so he gets quite a high position like up the job, and he still doesn't know what he's doing. I kind of feel like a bit shortchanged here that he's not commissioner or whatever the highest of the high
He's
position
just
is.
failed upwards.
Well, he does fail upwards, doesn't he? But I kind of expected him. He's almost failed himself out of the system. That he's kind of obviously, as you said, he's kind of very much conspiracy driven.
There's still an immaturity to him. You'll see it in a conversation later in the film with Taggart. Not much later in the film because we're getting quite towards the end now, but you'll see that. But also, it's little things like he's wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt.
Yeah, he's trying to be serious, but also there is that kind of immature streak. And he asks when they're all together in the car, he does ask that very inappropriate question, which even I cringed at a little bit.
We'll reveal it when we get there because it's
yes, and that's towards the end.
Well, it's the asking for an apology during a shootout, like.
Yeah, it's just like what? But I just kind of feel like I expected him, rather than being a PI. Rather than being a PI, I expected him to be even higher up than what he was. And
well, in the TV pilot, it's revealed that he's mayor. Well, it's mayor or governor.
I expected him in a similar role. I thought, right, okay, he's got to the top and had to stop. But no, he's a PI. But as I say, we kind of see him a bit too late. He does spend, spoiler alert, much of this film off screen in captivity, which is a great shame. I mean, I would kind of agree. He has, this is.
Because he has a tendency to sort of steal.
But he has kind of been brought out especially for this role. But I kind of feel we don't see enough of him, which is a shame.
He steals all the scenes he's in, and it's not that many of them. But you just
so he does steal them, as you're right, definitely. But I just kind of feel shortchanged that he's not higher up position in his career.
I think for me, it's like if I can just sort of you just feel like, Billy's back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like when he picks up the gun, it's like, I've had too much more firepower. It's like, oh yeah.
He was always the talkative younger brother as well. If you've got like him and Taggart, he was always the one that was talking too much and a bit too over enthusiastic, and the more nervy one and everything else. So basically, you've left us with the straight guy, which might sort of work with Eddie Murphy alongside him, but they don't spend that much time together. So Taggart ends up losing out for that reason. He needs Rhodes to play off him.
Yeah, you can't just have that straight character. You need a foil, don't you, really?
And very first
that might be why Taggart doesn't work either.
Well, exactly. They're doing a stakeout at the end of the film, and he turns to him and says something breathtakingly naive and inappropriate, and you go, that's how those two always talk to each other. And you remember how good they were. Because when you watch the first film the first time, you're watching Eddie Murphy. You're not really watching those two. And if you deliberately make an attempt to watch any of the Beverly Hills Cop films, either of the first two anyway, but certainly the first one, and almost ignore Eddie Murphy and watch those two, you'll see how good they are together.
Yeah. And as I always said, like, they should have been a movie. They should have had their own spin-off movie.
Yeah.
Or TV show or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to the final firefight now, aren't we?
Yeah, so they basically sort of, there's a bit of a chase and they decide to just go straight. Well, they call Jeffrey to make sure that.
They kidnapped her. They tried to earlier in the film as well, but they've managed it now. They've got her, and he is able to get her traced. And
they basically head straight there for a big shootout. And they crash through. It's basically
it's the first film's shootout exactly, almost.
Mm.
I mean, he was shot in the shoulder in the first film. He's shot in the shoulder in this film. The mansion looks very similar, I would say, in the grounds.
Yeah, they do. It is kind of broadly similar, isn't it? It's that kind of trope that we've seen before.
Yeah. And I think that's it, really. They Grant is killed by Abbott, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, just as he's about to kill them. And they were able to drop the charges against Enrique. Rosewood and Taggart sort of, make peace with each other because Taggart really did cut off Rosewood. And Axel is taken to hospital. The funny thing is, Jane is responding to him being put in the ambulance like his life's in the balance, but nothing else, nothing about the film supports that. You don't think for a second he's going to die.
Well, yeah, but, but that's movie. Like, that's the thing. It's, I always think of like
movie logic.
Yeah, it's that thing in Last Action Hero. It's
Right.
like in reality, it's like, oh, this is severe. This could quite be traumatic injury, but in movie logic, it's like it's just a scratch. There's nothing.
It's like a fresh wound.
Yeah, shot. It's just shot in the shoulder. Like when you see, in movie language, you see someone gets like shot like at the side, or anywhere on the side. That's like, well, that's not a fatal shot.
They carry on. They're not.
Yeah.
But the point is,
Or he pulls off a vest and was like, this Kevlar's great.
in movie logic, this is at worst a sort of disabling shot.
Yeah.
She's replying like he's going to die, and you know in these films, unless you're shot through the fucking head, you got
Or
a chance to
chest.
survive. Even the chest, you know, they might say, well, it missed all your major organs or
Yeah.
something. But so he's put into hospital. There's talk of him, you know, they're saying, why don't you stay in LA? We don't know where that's going to go, if anywhere. I doubt there'll be another one of these films, but there you go. He does break out of the hospital to meet her in a sort of a coffee shop at some point. And then the film ends with Rosewood and Taggart on stakeout. You're not quite sure what it is to start with, but they're watching Axel. They're watching.
Yeah, they're making sure he stays in hospital.
And Rosewood asks Taggart how often he makes love to his wife.
I just cringed. I mean, I know obviously Billy's got this like, really sort of
but
childish streak, but I just think, oh my
line
god.
In the mouth of somebody less talented. And when I was a kid or a
No, it
teenager,
was hilarious.
I never thought Judge Reinhold
I
was
just
that
cringed my
talented.
way through. I was like, oh my
But
god.
that line is easier to fuck up than land.
Well, exactly, but he delivers it with the plum. But it's just like, oh my god, but that's his skill. You know, that's how talented he is an actor. He can deliver that line and still, you know,
And sound
generate that response.
innocent and a bit almost mock worldly, like he's not, but he's read some self-help book or something.
Yeah, like he tries to be, you know, say that he knows it all, but I literally laughed out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so funny, so funny.
Well, it's just like one of those people who like he just says what he thinks out loud.
Yeah, there's no filter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's very childlike. He's like the little brother, isn't he? That hasn't quite got sort of puberty yet and talk like not Kevin the teenager, but Kevin the child before he was a teenager.
Yeah. Before he becomes a teenager.
I
Before
tend
midnight
to think,
strikes.
but I think there's a compliment in this film for that, to say that this film is a lesser film than the first one, but it actually almost makes me appreciate the first film more, because I go, yeah, I remember how good you two were, and I was busy just watching Eddie Murphy, you know what I mean? And I've always loved Ronnie Cox as well. Talking of which, just as an aside, the golfer in this, Christopher McDonald, is he called?
Yeah.
Was Chris informed me. I'd seen it, but I'd forgotten. He was shooting McGavin in Happy Gilmore. But just talking of Ronnie Cox was captain of the Enterprise in a Next Generation episode, double parter called Chain of Command. And the guy who played Shooter McGavin was in a very famous episode as well. He was from the Enterprise C in a Next Generation series episode called Yesterday's Enterprise. Truly one of the great episodes if you want to see him in something else. But yeah, this is a lesser film. And of course, just Axel sneaks into the back of the car, very, very like in the first film. But instead of going to a nude bar, they're going to go for a steak. I just thought if the film really wanted to be meta, they could go to a strip club and it was all the same strippers from 40 years ago, because they're all so much older. But
it just kind of makes you think, you know, thinking now, you're thinking, would you rather just have a bit of a nostalgia, just like, yeah, let's just like bring back the magic and just like sort of cover old hits? Do you know what I mean? Like if more of the movie was like this, like the last scene, which at a day just feels like, yeah, let's just add this on because we've not had it. We've not had these three together. Like,
and the thing is, before, when they were tailing him for suspicious reasons, and here they're just supporting their friend. They don't want him to harm himself because he has some inadvertently self-destructive behaviours and a low boredom threshold, and he needs to rest. He needs to rest in the hospital. So it was a lovely way to sign the film off. I just think, final thoughts for me is it's a greatest hits Beverly Hills Cop film. I did laugh a couple of times, which I think is always a plus because we're coming to America or as I tend to call it, coming to America.
Coming to America.
You stress
As in,
that.
as in
so
the
you
number
mean-
2.
Yeah, exactly. And but you stress it so people know you're talking about the sequel. But the sequel there wasn't a single laugh, and I was quite pissed off by it in many, many ways. This is decent enough. It's not breaking any new ground particularly, as with the first film. So it's not even a fault really, because the first film's a genuinely great film, but the plot is the least interesting thing about it. They have frozen him in amber a little bit, but at least he has been promoted once or twice, and he did have a family, and it's as good as a film like this is going to be. They don't scrimp on the action. They did spend $150 million on it, and the end result is perfectly fine. I would happily watch it again. Where I rank it amongst the Beverly Hills Cop films in general, it's nowhere near the first film. It's better than the third film. The difficulty is the second film, because the second film, when we reviewed it last year, was better than I remember, but it's still got those sort of Tony Scott ticks on it, and colouring and colour palette and lighting that I don't really like. So, yeah, it's a decent entry, and it's a half-decent boilerplate. Oh, that's what a Beverly Hills Cop film is like, because this is very, very much a Beverly Hills Cop film in the way that, for example, the third film wasn't. And it's okay. That's it from me.
Becca?
Yeah, solid 3 out of 5. I think most
I
things
think
are
that's
probably-
fair. I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
Most things are generally better than the third film, despite its amazing number of cameos. Oh my gosh. It just opens up as a little black book and just everybody appears in the film, which is incredible. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, yeah, sort of 3 out of 5, definitely. I mean, yeah, to use that kind of like sort of Kermode trope, it does kind of pass the 6 laugh test for me, definitely. Yeah, some bits are kind of a little bit put together, and there's a lot that's shoehorned in into the 2 hours. Well, I had a good time. Yeah, for me, I'd say that the standout really was Taylor Page. I thought she was fantastic. It's great to kind of see like the old team back together. There's a lot of nostalgia. It does kind of bash you on the head a little bit. Serge was fabulous nonetheless. Kevin Bacon, the same moustache twirling villain, superbly kind of sneery and slimy and kind of. He's when he pops up in a film, he's just going to raise that level, even higher. Yeah, I don't know how sort of memorable it will be. Perhaps in another, will they take another 40 years to make another one? Can they all survive that long? In the grand scheme of things, I'm not quite sure. How sort of memorable it'll be. But as I say, it's a nice way to kind of to cap off the series, definitely. And on the anniversary kind of thing around that sort of time as well. But for me, one of the other standout points was the score as well. I was just amazed kind of they brought back sort of some of those sort of original kind of synths and instruments from the 80s to really recreate that sound. So it's one of those. It's up there kind of like maybe with the Bond theme or like Star Wars, for example. It's transcended the film and kind of just become part of the fabric of popular culture. Like you hear that theme, even if you don't. You may not, like I hadn't done until we did it on the podcast. Like it's from Beverly Hills Cop. It's the Axel Foley theme. Even that
you don't meet many people unless you are the biggest Eddie Murphy detractor. You don't meet people who don't like it.
Exactly, that's it. It's
certainly if they're in our generation or across
Precisely.
our generation, and the one maybe millennials through to very older boomers, even not older boomers, sorry, older Gen X, anywhere in that sort of category. Most people
you're going to recognise it, aren't you? It's instantly recognisable for sure.
And few, if any, people don't like it.
No, that's it, and it's
unless you associate it with Crazy Frog.
Well, I was going to say that's it. Yeah, it's even if you know it through Crazy Frog, you kind of have to hold back going ding ding afterwards, and you think, oh my god. But yeah, as I say, yeah, but it's not perfect. But it's great cast, great score, great action. Comedy. There are some plot holes, but yeah, overall, I mean, it's on Netflix, so if you subscribe, do check it out.
Yeah,
highly recommend it for sure. And it's probably kind of, as I say, one of the top. It just kind of sits there between one and two for me, definitely. I say, it's not like the perfect film, but it's pretty decent. I would say.
I think when you say it's not the perfect film, I think what I would add is that it doesn't have
The
It's
perfect Beverly Hills Cop movie.
No, it's not wildly ambitious, but having set itself not too much in the way of ambition, it doesn't fuck it up, which is all you want, really.
No, that's it. Yeah, it treads that kind of fine line, really, doesn't it? So it doesn't kind of.
It doesn't offend you. It doesn't make you angry, make you kind of go like, fuck's sake.
Why did they bring this back to do this to it, like Coming to America?
Yeah.
No, this is it. I mean, the gang's all here. You've got the theme tune. You've got the 80s music. You've got the kind of, as I said, greatest hits.
I mean,
it's warmed up for nostalgia.
Well, to put it this way, and I think I wrote this in the written review, when it comes to the Coming to America sequel, I would actually pay for like the Men in Black to zap it from my memory, because it infects the original one, and I don't like that. This doesn't do that.
No, it doesn't have that effect. But no, in short, I enjoyed it.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably agree there. I think it's fine. I think for me personally, I think I'd rather have more Rosewood and Taggart. In a way, I kind of think it's either going to have Rosewood and Taggart in properly or not all. Do you know what I mean? I think I might feel differently if they weren't in this one. And then you just go, okay, fine, well, he's a new set of characters, different, same location, different characters kind of thing, and you just sort of just accept it and move on. But when you have kind of the older cast here, it makes you think, why weren't they utilised in the same way? Do you know what I mean? But
particularly when Judge Reinhold hasn't made a film for 7 or 8 years or whatever it is, he's effectively come out of retirement for this. Whether that retirement's enforced or by choice, I don't know. But for whatever reason, he's not working in this area anymore. They offer him this, he takes it, and then they barely use him.
Mm. But apparently they're going to develop a 5th one now, so we'll see.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, the 5th one's now in production. So what comes of that, I don't know.
It's your kids, Axel. Something's got to be done about your
kids. Maybe somewhere a son does come out of the woodwork.
Maybe. Yeah. Or maybe he does actually finally relocate to Beverly Hills now.
After all this,
That's what I thought was the tease, because they said, why don't you just stay out here?
Mm.
And you think,
maybe they do.
They've said that his closest friend, I mean, he's popular everywhere, but his closest friend is Jeffrey, obviously, and Jeffrey's retired.
So maybe we'll perhaps see him.
Or maybe Jeffrey gets in trouble and he has to go to Detroit. Have a whole
Detroit Hills Cop. There we go.
Yeah. Maybe
Does
that's
Detroit
it.
have hills though?
No, I just made it up.
Wait, it's the hills bit. I'm not sure.
Well, that was good.
Detroit Hills. All right.
Well, that's going to be
that's
one.
Not a place. I just made it up.
That's going to be one of the pictures for
Motor City Cop.
Motor City Cop. There we go. We've got it.
There we are.
Right, let's get onto Netflix right away. We've got an idea.
Detroit City Cop.
It's only a title.
No, that's one of the pictures though of one of the sequels, wasn't it? It was going to have Jeffrey get like killed or something in London or something like that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they were going to film it in London. I'd forgotten that, but I think I even told that story at the time, but I'd forgotten about it now. Because obviously you read up on a film, you do the show, some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. I'd forgotten that. Yeah.
So yeah, no, but yeah, but broadly speaking, yeah, I know it's fine. I enjoyed it on what I enjoyed it on as a casual watch. Yeah, obviously it doesn't touch the first one at all, but
no, it doesn't.
But what's gonna? So yeah, no, fine, perfectly fine. 3 stars out of 5.
Yeah, cool. All right, but could we add a 4th star, the star of knowledge?
I think there's only one person here who could do that for us.
Factus Becker.
Yes, just quickly cobbling together some fun facts. I've only got
through weeks of careful research.
Well,
yes.
Well, I'll just add one random fact to start us off
research.
with. Eddie Murphy's actually 63 years old.
Yeah, I know.
Because
he said I was 23 making the first one. I'm not 23 anymore. He said so it was hard work.
I mean, just think that person's 63. He doesn't look 63 at all.
No,
he's aged very well.
fine wine, definitely. But I was gonna say, yeah, despite the number of age jokes in this movie, like they all handle it really well. And that seems to be a big thing of obviously all these kind of franchises coming back with their sort of, you know, leading stars getting on a little bit in years, but they all handled it really well. So I'll include that as I'll borrow that fun fact from you. I did have 4 because it's the 4th film, but one we've already mentioned. So obviously other directors involved, as Dave mentioned, Brett Ratner, after working with Eddie Murphy on Tower Heist in 2011. Adil Arbi and Bilal Fallah were also considered to direct, but obviously Mark Molloy got the job. Indeed, this is the first film in the series to be directed by a first-time director, if that makes sense.
It does. It totally makes sense, yeah. It's always been experienced people, yeah. It
has, definitely. All kind of, as I say, known sort of directors working within that genre.
It's not bad for a first film, though. I mean, he's done commercials and things like that. Which
I think,
most of them would do.
And music videos. I think he's kind of like ideally placed, really. Something that's quite, you know.
No, he's done all the prep he needed. He did that Aquafresh commercial.
That's a classic commercial, that one. Oh my god.
That's brilliant. I wanted to clean my teeth after that. Here's $150 million.
And it's quite an international production as well. Obviously, sort of American cast and crew, Australian director, British guy doing the music and that sort of thing. So it's quite an international sort of flavour to it. Fun fact number 3 is the first film in the series not to be distributed by Paramount, obviously. And then fun fact number 4, obviously there's quite a few, a couple of cameos apparently. One of them I didn't see, but just delving on in the graveyard that is IMDb.com. On Jeffrey's office wall, there's a photo of Gilbert Hill, obviously played Inspector Todd, passed away a few years ago in 2016. And apparently, like during that traffic jam scene, Stephen Berkoff appeared as an extra. I didn't spot him though.
I didn't spot him. I wasn't looking.
No, I might have to go back and have a little look.
Really?
That would have been incredibly impressive. I could only be more impressed if like Maud Adams had been there.
I was just about to make that reference.
Yeah, I was kind of decadent and divided. But yeah, I didn't spot him unfortunately. But I was just combing through for some random fun facts. That's the best I could come up with. So
that's all right.
It's also
Chris. I've got to interrupt. Has that added a 4th star?
I think so.
Oh, thank you.
That was great. Well done, Becca.
Well
done, Becca.
Thank you. Let you go on.
I've noticed also this was like had the old Bruckheimer and Simpson logo, obviously since.
I noticed that. I think this is some of Don Simpson's best work since he died.
but I was like, I'm sure it's not the first time. I think they did it for the last Bad Boys film as well, the new one.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that.
What, the last one, as in the one out now? 4.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sure they've done that. So I don't know if it's the.
I've seen the first 3. I've seen 4. Okay. Might be a bit of nostalgia, you know what I mean? You're doing an old film, you know. It may well be that Bruckheimer, frankly, just misses him. Yeah.
Could be. I mean,
it was nice to see that title card though.
It is like a title though. It's like Beverly Hills and Bad Boys. It was started when he was alive, so it could just be out of like, well, technically, it's our fun, So I don't know, but yeah, that's just.
Well, he was part of the whole development. Apparently the just one added little thing is the references to Rambo are because it's an in-joke. Firstly, by complete coincidence, we're recording this on Sylvester Stallone's 78th birthday, so happy birthday, Sly. Talking of times whipping by there. But the original idea was to develop Sylvester Stallone into Beverly Hills Cop. Obviously, as Chris pointed out at the time, a lot of the ideas went and got used in Cobra instead. But that's why they've got him obsessed with Rambo. It's an in-joke with the fact that they're looking back to the 80s and this could have been Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I think, didn't I work that in as a fun fact in one night reviews when we did it last time?
You
can't remember.
You did, but I'm saying the reason.
Yeah, that's why they
using
ran
that fact in memory for this.
Yeah.
There we go. We recycle. We're a green podcast.
Yeah. Well, the Bond reference today is it's also Eva Green's birthday.
It is. Happy birthday to the legend that is Eva Green.
Yeah. Okay, as for social media, you can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find me on Civitronics on Twitter. You can also find all the old shows on Podbean or wherever your podcast host is. We're sure you'll be find us on there.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Do Expect Us to Talk. You can find us on Facebook, Do You Expect Us to Talk. Find us on YouTube, Do You Expect Us to Talk. But whichever platform you listen to us on, please do rate, review, like and share and subscribe. And if you can, just give us a nice 5-star review. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much.
We had a very thoughtful comment on there on our last film, which was very welcome. So thank you for that on YouTube. That is very, very positive, with a couple of also slight debates over a couple of our points as well, which we're happy to read. So thank you very much. Talking of which,
we
are
have to read
going
them. We're
back...
not going to say they're right, but we have.
Yeah, I'd have to have a look. I've not, to be honest, I've not checked YouTube yet. But thank you very much for your kind comments. I will have a look.
Our last YouTube video, there was a very thoughtful comment on there.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. I'm literally going there now.
But talking about Hitchcock, we are heading back there. I know we announced this last time, but this has been sort of an addition, which means, Becca.
Yes, Do You Expect Us to Talk will return with episode 249 with The Lady Vanishes.